Tennessee should have one of the top 5 most explosive offenses in the nation this upcoming season. Why? Because of a group of receivers that we think is pretty good, but actually not getting a lot of respect. Tennessee not in the top 10. Their receiving core for 2023. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, this is one of those when we do our 3:45 a.m. production meeting that I don't give a lot of input with Caleb because I think we may see it legitimately different. So Tennessee is not in the top 10 receiving core in the nation. Here are the teams that are. Ohio State. I mean, they've got 3 first-round picks. I just don't know how you could argue Ohio State against anybody. The Texas Longhorns. Then you have Washington. You have Georgia. You have Florida State. You have USC. You have Oregon. You then have LSU. You have Texas A&M, and lastly, you have Alabama. I'm going to make the argument right now because I have a feeling you're going to go the other way. I don't think Tennessee should be in the top 10. And because we know that Dante Thornton has ability, has proven it, but does he make the transition? You're more likely to make the transition as a transfer than you were 20 years ago, right? But still, there is that question. Squirrel White, could he have a sophomore slump? I think Bru McCoy is the most talented receiver, if not player, on this team in terms of NFL ability. But let's see. He's yet to do it. He has an off season. So I would kind of have, if I were writing this list, I would have an asterisk next to Tennessee. And I would say if every one of their ifs come through, and if Squirrel White is as good as we think, if Dante Thornton is as good as we think, if Bru McCoy comes into his own. But I don't have a problem with them not being on the top 10 list. I think they will be a top 5 sort of wide receiver group at the end of the year. But when you lose 2 guys to the NFL in Jalin Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, it's not a great surprise to me that they're not in the top 10. You?
I can't be upset at the list because Pro Football Focus isn't some, they don't kowtow to narratives. They do an analytical approach. I mean, they grade these receivers and they give them grades and things like that. And so this isn't based on any, we don't think Tennessee's there. No, this is based on actual numbers and raw data that puts Tennessee out of the top 10. And by the way, when you were all, PFF is just throwing us massive curveballs. Not only does Tennessee not have a top 10 wide receiver unit, according to PFF, but they have the highest graded returning safety in all of football. So maybe the secondary will be Tennessee's strength this year. I'm kidding, but
switch up for sure.
Yeah, Wesley Walker was the highest graded returning safety, but yeah, it's in the SEC. That is. I still think this is going to be top 10 though, and I don't blame Pro Football Focus for not putting it in there. But based on projections, I don't think we can debate this is going to be a top. I think it's hard to argue this is going to be top 10. Okay, yes, they lose the Biletnikoff Award winner. Fine. I don't really count Cedric Tillman as a loss. Bru McCoy and Ramel Keyton were the starters for most of the year last year at wideout. So I think that Bru McCoy and Ramel Keyton they returned their go-to wideouts on both sides. Squirrel White proved more than enough in plenty of games last year. And Dante Thornton, I disagree with you about the transition. Now, I think the transition is actually harder for a receiver than a quarterback in Josh Heupel's system. I still think it's a pretty easy transition, though. I mean, you're just schemed to run bare a lot of times and get wide open down the sideline. I mean, as long as you got speed, which he's got, I don't think there's a lot of stuff to learn in Josh Heupel's system at receiver.
No, I agree. It's a reading safety sort of thing. It's not terribly difficult. Travis says, I want to put this up on the board because this is kind of a controversial take, but it's absolutely true. After Pitt, Tillman was inconsequential. That's very true. He was injured for most of the season. Hyatt was overrated. The receiver crew is way better this year. That's a bold statement, but one that I'm not going to disagree with, because in that slot position, you expect somebody to get wide open like Jalin Hyatt did last year, don't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's the scheme.
Do they have the so Hyatt is not as quick on the 40 time, like right off the jump, but I guess, would you say like his long distance, his acceleration at like 30, 40 yards, that's where he started to beat guys there. Can other slot receivers do that? That's where the question comes into play, because Hyatt was so good at winning the distance runs.
Yeah, that is a very good question. Does he turn? I mean, do they have a guy who turns the 20s into 50s? I don't know, but it also wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they had a guy who's ultra quick, like a Squirrel White, that is able to keep moving the chains. But don't you think Dante Thornton can be similar? I know we're talking about a Blitnikoff Award winner, but don't you think that Dante Thornton could be close to Jalin Hyatt?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm pulling up. So Hyatt's 100-meter dash, funny enough, because I think the 100-meter dash matters than the 40 time if we're judging receiver speed at slot and Heupel system, quite honestly. And Hyatt's 100-meter dash is 10.46. I'm pulling up Thornton's best 100-meter dash, and there's not. Okay, see, this is the thing. It's reportedly just over 11, which is still fast. Oh, sorry, this is a different Dante Thornton. Excuse me. This is it. This is it. The same Dante Thornton. Okay, yeah, it's just over 11. So, and Squirrel White's is like 10.68. So Hyatt has the fastest 100-meter dash of these guys, and 100-meter dash matters more than the 40 time in terms of getting open down the field. So it's hard to know if they can do it. Now, Thornton doesn't have to be as fast in the slot because he's got a size advantage. I mean, who's going to guard him one-on-one?
I don't know. Another take from the message board where Rocky Top Tom said Hyatt isn't overrated. He fit the system like a hand in glove. That's not being overrated. That's perfectly fitting a system and excelling in it. I jive with that too. I think you're both right, but I think there are other people that can do that. It's kind of like a running back in the NFL. I think there are other people that can step in and do that, what Hyatt did last year. I'm not saying he's going to break every sort of record, and I think it's going to be split. I made a couple of phone calls over vacation. I think it's going to be a little split between Hyatt and Squirrel and Thornton. So I don't think that you're going to have a situation in which Hyatt's just kind of the guy, and he had to be the guy last year. But that surprises me that Jalin Hyatt's, and you said his 100-meter was what again?
It was 10.46, I believe, which was much faster than Thornton's or Squirrel White's. Squirrel White's was, I think, 10.68, and Thornton's was 11.02.
Yeah, but right now, if you had to pick between Squirrel White and Dante Thornton in this offense, who would you take? That's a whole different question, isn't it?
I was driving the Dante Thornton train the whole time, and then spring practice happened, and it looked like Squirrel White did not give up his position at all. And so I can't really knock Squirrel White at that point. So at this point, I'm going Squirrel White.
And Dante Thornton, that's not incredibly fast. You know how fast Fred White ran when he came to UT as a cornerback, not a safety?
40 time or 100-meter?
100-meter.
I'm going to go, I don't know. What is it? I have no idea. I don't want to disrespect Fred White by saying it wrong. So
I know. Don't call him an overachiever either. 10.2. So
10 point. That's faster than Jalin Hyatt's.
Yeah, he was winning like track events all over the country.
I don't know.
A lot of people don't think of Fred like that.
Could you imagine him as a receiver? I mean, just like throw it down the field and he's going to catch it. I mean, him in this system playing receiver would be incredible. So it's funny you bring this up about receiver, though. So I'm curious. In Josh Heupel's system, is receiver truly like running back? So, for instance, if this is an NFL team and Josh Heupel's your NFL coach, does a receiver carry the same value as a running back in the sense, the best value deals you can do is trade a running back for a lot of draft picks in the NFL? Do you do that with receivers if you have this team in the NFL? Because are they replaceable?
Yeah. I want to. I'm going to say no because they're replaceable. But if something would have happened to Jalin Hyatt, he had figured things out. I think that would have been a transition period. I think you would have had a 2 or 3 game transition period in the middle of the year with the best team's defense on the field. But let me ask you this. If Tennessee, if one guy decided to transfer tomorrow, Squirrel White or Dante Thornton, which would hurt Tennessee more? And it's brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Andy Mason is absolutely the best. He's my realtor, should be yours. Best service, best prices in the biz. It's just that simple. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. I'm about to purchase a home, and Andy's the first guy I call right after the pre-approval. Okay, so if one of those guys traded, because I don't say hurt, I hate saying that. But if one of those guys traded out teams and they said, I'm going to transfer because I'm not happy with Squirrel/Dante, which loss would hurt Tennessee more?
God, that's a tough one. I'm going to say Dante.
See, I come back from vacation throwing high, hot heat.
He does. I'm going to say Dante just because Dante can fill a void at slot or wideout. I mean, if you lose Dante, that's losing a what? Okay, so say Dante's gone. What if you lose Ramel or Bru? Well, that's where you really could have used Dante. So he can play multiple positions. So I'm going to say Dante.
Okay, well, you kind of changed my mind on the fly, but my argument for Squirrel would be this, is that I like his shiftiness at that slot receiver position. I think he's going to move some chains. I also think he's going to do some end-around things. I think he'll do some other creative things. I think he'll do some little slip screens that maybe he's better equipped to do than Dante Thornton. So I will say Squirrel White, but the ability to play multiple positions certainly gives me pause for thought.